All right, everyone, a rather surreal event here. I'm going to read this tweet verbatim because when I read it, I'm like, at first I didn't want to believe it, but it's actually true. DEI, although spelled die, they're interchangeable. The Biden-Harris administration appointed Sneha Nair, Special Assistant at the National Nuclear Security Administration. Nair believes in eradicating white supremacy in the nuclear field, as well as queering nuclear weapons. As part of a diversity, equity, and inclusion push, she believes is essential for deterring threats to nuclear energy facilities in the United States. Here's my thoughts on this. They're probably fairly obvious. Diversity, equity, and inclusion, when applied to, let's say, changing tires, or flipping burgers, or creating widgets for computers or something like that, while pernicious and, well, clearly wrong, does not endanger our national security on any fundamental level. When you apply it to nuclear systems, that's a different story. You remember Sam Brinton, for example, from last year, or earlier this year, I can't remember. Sam Brinton, nuclear energy official, chosen specifically because he was a cross-dresser, by the Biden administration, was like stealing women's luggage. He's a kleptomaniac, quite clearly. Only got caught because he stole a bunch of designer clothes, actually, from an African individual who was doing the clothing design thing, and it was like worth a shit ton of money or something like that. Sort of thing that they trot down the catwalk. And he got fired, belatedly. He had to do it several times before he finally got let go of. The entire Biden administration is DEI. For example, Camala Harris was only chosen to counterbalance against the old white dude. So she's the young, dynamic, vibrant new face of the party. It's id poll, basically. It's an extension, ironically, of actual bigotry. The way businesses and government agencies should work is on a stark meritocratic system. It should not matter what the person looks like, what their proclivities are, etc. It should matter only what their meritocratic sort of credentials are. Where did you go to school? What did you study? What were your grades, for example? How long did you study? What kind of degrees do you have? What's the content of your character? Do you have a criminal background or something like that? Or are you, you keep your nose clean, etc., etc., etc.? That's the only basis on which people should be hired for any position, whether it's public or private. That's the opposite of what we see here with the Biden administration. Well, now the Kamala administration, Biden's clearly no longer in charge of even his own sock changing. The fact that you would have a fairly senior ranking official within the energy department who is involved with nuclear systems, so nuclear energy, nuclear weapons, things of that nature, that quite clearly is more concerned with sociopolitics than with engineering or anything like that, is deeply concerning. Again, if this were the Department of Agriculture, okay, you've got this woke individual telling farmers that they need to hire more migrant labor or something like that. Pernicious? Yes. Constitutional? No. Is it a good idea? No, absolutely not. But can we at least shield our nuclear systems, nuclear energy and nuclear weapons from needing to be queered, in her own words? I mean, even what does that even mean, by the way? What are you even trying to convey? It's not 100% clear, actually. The diversity, equity, and inclusion thing needs to die. It's nothing more than an offshoot of Marxism. It's literally communistic in nature. That's the whole point. It's to demoralize a culture and weaken it. They want to weaken the United States and the world stage so that we can bow down and we'll be a power, but we won't be a monopolar power. That's the whole idea. And the idea is that the United States has gotten too successful, and so they want to denigrate that any way that they can. This individual should not be working with the Department of Energy, number one, just like Sam Brinton was canned. I would think this is a cannibal statement. Number two, we definitely need an overhaul of the hiring practices of not just the Department of Energy or anything related to nukes, but of all federal bureaus. Because it seems like there's an awful lot of anti-meritocratic sentiment in there. Like you've got some generals in the United States military that were quite clearly chosen not because of their particular credentials, but because of their self-professed identity as trans or their race or something like that, or their gender. That should not be happening. If it has anything to do with military endeavors, certainly it shouldn't be happening. I sleep less soundly at night knowing that the people that are in charge of our effective deterrent against any enemy were not chosen for that position because of their meritocratic credentials. They were chosen for that position because of what was between their legs or the clothes that they chose to wear. It makes absolutely no sense. Again, if you want to do that like in you've got an automotive industry and you're like, okay, well, I want my factory floor to look like a pack of Skittles. Okay, well, maybe you get a couple of lemons that are getting churned out because of the anti-meritocratic sentiment. Maybe a few people crashed their cars. 2 or 3 people died. Sad, shouldn't happen, but it's not the end of the world. It's not going to destroy the country. When we're talking about nuclear systems, you could destroy the country. That's the whole problem. It endangers literally everyone. By the way, it endangers all of those same people that would be under DEI, under IDPOL. It endangers people who are white or black. Doesn't matter if they're Hispanic or not. If the atom bomb goes off in your neighborhood, you don't magically get shielded by your privilege from the blast, now do you? And so it becomes a big problem. It's an existential crisis. It's on the existential level. It's not on the fundamentally wrong, but ultimately we can absorb the pain from it level. Not that I believe in DEI in any way, shape, or form. Of course, I wrote a book against critical race theory some time ago. Critical race theory debunked. Excellent work by yours truly, by the way. It was rather easy. It's not difficult to debunk it. They've given up with the CRT, and they've moved on to the DEI. They're still trying to die on this hill and defend it. I am uncomfortable with somebody who is informing decisions related to nuclear weaponry being chosen for that job quite obviously for diversity purposes. Especially when, again, they're remarking on sociopolitics in a way that makes it seem like they're less inclined to actually do their job than to try to do mission creep and, again, queer the nuclear weapons or something like that. I'm not entirely sure what's meant by that. It's a lack of communication, too, when you think about it. This particular administration has been one of the worst at communicating to the public and to the press at this point in U.S. history, if not world history. It doesn't even make sense. How can you make so many fucking mistakes? Well, they found a way. That's about all. Peace out.